Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel, our evening edition, our full report for our Grand Solar Minimum news. Let's get started with space weather. Not really much has changed since our afternoon report. We still have the 5 active sunspot regions, still at sunspot number 76. Solar wind speeds haven't changed much either, as we're sitting at a 402.1 kilometers per second and density of 8.7. So not much has changed at all with the sun since earlier today. Cosmic radiation dosage rates 8.3. That's a 48-hour difference of negative 0.4%. So KP indices, also important to mention. We are looking at a 2 currently and a 24-hour max of a 4. Now, we are expecting a G1 geomagnetic storm tomorrow, and possibly on the 26th and the 27th now, as we are dealing with solar wind from a coronal hole tomorrow, and then the possibility of the effects from the 2 M-class solar flares. So we are going to be on alert for minor geomagnetic storm activity in our atmosphere here for the next 2-3 days. What does that mean for our volcano going off right now in La Palma? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at a live look at our volcano. La Palma, Canary Islands here. And let's see what we have on the update. I've actually kind of heard the lava fountains getting a little bit louder right before we went live with this. And, you know, according to what I'm reading here, we are starting to see the lava flow somewhat decrease. Now, this could be an indication that the main event of this eruption is going to be winding down and just maintaining a stable eruption. Volcanic tremors have continued throughout the day today, but there are still fears and concerns of more fissures possibly opening. So they were kind of like on the fence with this when I was reading in Volcano Discovery. Some of it was saying that we were looking at a strong possibility of another fissure opening up, and then in the same breath they're also saying that this could be also an indication, if it slows down, that this eruption will become more stable. Now, we're just sitting here watching this live, and you can see how high these lava fountains are shooting up. I will say that that's a little bit higher than what we've seen from earlier today. Now, it's a lot harder to see during the day as smoke, pretty much smoke and ash, has blocked any kind of view whatsoever. But also, it is worth noting that this has become a little bit more of an ashier event, as today there was a plume that was reaching 12,000 feet. It was visible from much of the island. Deformation data shows inflation overall is continuing, although the trend has slowed down or even decreased. And they're saying that temporarily for yesterday. Volcanic tremors remain high, but has been showing a slight decrease compared to the past days. This suggests that the eruption might be becoming more stable, although it cannot be ruled out a new fissure could open and new lava flows might appear. So as you see at Volcano Discovery, they're not taking anything off the table just yet. But again, folks, this was a VEI2 volcano eruption, nothing major. If anything, I'm just keeping us up to date on what's happening because of the coverage that's available for this particular eruption has been absolutely stunning, and just, if anything, amazing thing of nature when you're sitting here watching. Of course, folks over there in that region are not so eager about how beautiful this event is, because over 320 buildings have now been destroyed thanks to this volcano, and some residents now, we can hear them basically having out calls for help, for it is not that great of a situation. I did want to show you guys the lava flow real quick. Let me turn this down a little bit. I want to show you a lava flow map here real quick. For those of you who are wondering about where are we at as far as looking at lava flow heading to the ocean. And there's a lovely pic there. That's the ash plume that could be seen from all over the island, up to 12,000 feet. Again, not enough to really affect regional climate, but maybe local climate when you're constantly talking about ash plume being consistent for several hours. Obviously, it's going to take away the sun. It's going to cool it down a little bit. But I wanted to show you guys a picture of, well, that's absolutely gorgeous. But this is scary in a way. I mean, this gives you an idea of how close this city is to an active volcano. And, you know, as you can see in the picture, it's business as usual. Restaurants are open, people are shopping, people are doing things downtown, everything's, you know, there's a volcano down the road, but, you know, crazy. George Carlin said it best, build a house near Kilauea and wonder why there's lava in the living room, right? But this is the map I wanted to show you guys. A lot of people are wondering, how far away are we from the ocean on this eruption? Well, here we are. And I will say that it may or may not reach this area. We don't know yet. This has been going on since the 19th of September, and today is the 23rd, and that's how far we've advanced. So we've got 5 days of eruption, and we've been over just a little bit over half. So I think the lava flow from this is slowed down quite a bit, because I think in the beginning a lot of folks thought this was going to reach the ocean within hours, or if not just a couple of days. But here we are, day 4 heading into day 5, and it may not even today and tomorrow are going to be crucial days, what it looks like for this volcano. They may continue to see lava flow increase. It may also start to taper down and become more stable, and that would prevent, hopefully, lava going to the ocean. We reported on the dangers of this lava meeting the ocean, creating a hydrochloric acid and basically killing off vegetation, plants, pretty harmful to humans too along the coast there. So we really don't want that, and I know a lot of us probably think that the water, lava flow to the water is imminent. So we'll keep our eyes on this. And also, just we were talking about space weather and what we've got coming over the next few days. Well, we've got a chance for geomagnetic activity, which will bounce off of our magnetosphere. And I'm a firm believer that sun's activity, once it affects the magnetosphere, the magnetic field, it reverberates throughout the entire planet. And that's how we see some of these stronger earthquakes and some of these volcano eruptions. And this volcano started popping off right around some low solar activity and some, you know, some stuff that we were expecting to happen that kind of was triggered by solar activity. Right now, we're chock full of it. 2 solar flares in the M classes, 5 sunspots for 76 for the smooth number. And then, of course, we got solar wind coming tomorrow. And then the CMEs that were released from the solar flare today, those should be here by the 26th and the 27th. So lots of activity to watch for as far as the next several days. I think we're going to get a better idea about what is going to happen with this eruption here very soon, especially if we get bombarded by the space weather that we might get bombarded by. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that very, very closely. Let's take a look at earthquake activities we did earlier today. Not much has changed. We had a 4.6 in Nicaragua. The central part of the world is really starting to see these stronger earthquakes from Mexico all the way to Central America. A 4.9 in Papua New Guinea, and a 5.2 out here near Impec, Tariba, Mexico, southwest of it, I should say. And then, of course, more Papua New Guinea, Nicaragua, a 4.6, Chile, a 4.5. And that's been about it. So nothing too crazy earthquake-wise today. 4.6, 5.2. Those are moderate earthquakes. Still, you can feel those, and they might be a little scary if you're not used to them. However, nothing major. There was a recent earthquake, though, a 3-point here in Whites City, New Mexico. I don't know if Richard Davidson is in the chat. Maybe he felt it, maybe not. I don't know if he is. Give us a full report there, sir, and I'd like to hear if you did feel it or not. So, while we're on earthquakes, a rare 5.9 earthquake hits near Melbourne, Australia. And the reason why I mentioned this was, you know, on top of everything that we've got going space weather-wise, here we get this rare earthquake. And it happens to happen during a period of time where we're seeing the results of low solar activity mixed in with CMEs and solar wind increase. So, again, a 5.9 in a rare part of Australia. The USGS issued a green alert for shaking-related fatalities. There is a low likelihood, thankfully, for casualties. The yellow alert was issued for economic losses. Some damage is possible, and the impact should be relatively localized. Estimated economic losses are to be about 1% of GDP of Australia. Past events with this alert level have required a local or regional response. So the shaking caused by the main shock lasted between about 20 and 60 seconds, depending on the distance of the epicenter. While no injuries have been reported, there are reports of significant damage in some parts of Victoria and building damage in Melbourne. Rescue services said they received calls for help as far away as 434 miles away from the epicenter. Earthquakes of this strength are rare in this region. An earthquake of this magnitude occurs every 10 to 20 years in southeast Australia, with the last in Thorpedale in 2021. We had a very large magnitude 6 in the late 1800s, although the precise magnitudes are not well known. So impressive today. On a day that the sun acts wacky, we get a rare 5.9. It hasn't happened in a while. The last one like this was around 1800. But again, they even admit that they're not even really sure how accurate their readings are from that far back. And then, of course, we already mentioned the Nicaragua earthquakes. This was yesterday, 6.5. So on top of the fact that we're still seeing 4.6s and 5s, here we are yesterday. We had this. And thankfully, there was no tsunami risk. No deaths or injuries have been reported at this time. This earthquake was near land, but it was also 19 miles deep. Again, this was a 6.5. So we've seen some seismic activity. We've seen some pretty decent volcanic activity. And that has continued because of space weather is also continuing. We already talked about how 320 buildings already destroyed here by lava at La Palma Canary Islands. And some lady here in this article is being quoted, and I don't know if this is dramatic or if this is, dire, but she says, "This volcano eruption is not a show, it's not a film, it's not an attraction. We need help here," said Teresa, a resident in St. Nicholas. So again, it's really easy to get caught up in the glamour of this because of how gorgeous these shots are. And unfortunately, when you see shots like this, you're not aware of how dangerous the situation, because this just looks like something beautiful, like it's background scenery and it's supposed to be like this, and that's how this, that's how things work here. But again, when you go to Watchers and you read something like that, your thoughts and prayers go with these folks, and we can only hope for the best possible outcome when it comes to this volcano, and hopefully it is starting to wind down. We'll see. Waterspout outbreak at Lake Michigan expected to spread across other portions of the Great Lakes. They had somewhere over a dozen reports of waterspouts yesterday, I believe it was, in Chicago near the Great Lakes. I had a guy named Eli talk about this a little bit too. It sounds like it's not that big of a deal, or maybe it is, I'm not sure, but as of 1500, they have confirmed at least 13 waterspouts funnels off the Chicago area. This is according to the ICWR. Expect more waterspouts to reform by Thursday morning over the same area. The number confirmed waterspouts funnels rose by 18 by 2200. So very, very active severe weather. And we'll take a look at our weather here just in a bit, as we are tracking some heavy rain coming to the northeast right now as we speak. Just about to arrive here where Mari and I here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. All right, so enough with the worldwide headlines and the climate and all that stuff with the volcanoes and earthquakes. We're well aware of what's causing that and what's going on. But let's get into some things tonight. There's two articles I want to cover. First, based on the Facebook fact checkers. The next one is on Biden's new panel. First, we'll start with the Facebook fact checkers. Now, this is concerning because many of you who follow this channel are very familiar with Willie Soon and Ronan Connolly. And basically, they were discussing the chilling effect on scientific inquiry of Facebook's apparent policy of shutting down mentions of published peer-reviewed papers their expert fact checkers don't like. Now, in a nutshell, this is shocking. And this is telling. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and read most of this quoted stuff here because this is important. Willie Soon and company are trying to show that there is no unequivocal answer here, but there are things that we need to look into. We recently published a new climate change report in the peer-reviewed scientific journal Research in Astronomy and Astrophysics. The nearly 24 co-authors of our paper are experts in solar physics and climate science. Now, that's important, folks. Remember that. How many people wrote this? There were how many? Over a dozen? Nearly 24 co-authors, and they were experts in solar physics and climate science. So right away, let's stop right there. If I'm a fact checker at Facebook, and I'm looking at a peer-reviewed paper that was authored by solar physics and climate science experts, I'm going to go ahead and read this. And if it is peer-reviewed and in a journal, it has to be allowed, right? I mean, if everybody agrees with me, put a 1 in the chat. If you find information, a link to a peer-reviewed paper that is factual, and the actual people who are in the field are actually writing the paper, it should be allowed as evidence to at least be looked at. I'm not saying it has to be the end-all answer, but it should be allowed in a polite debate with somebody talking about the climate, right? Let's continue on reading. We are looking at the role of the sun in climate change. We found that depending on which scientific data sets you choose, you could explain global warming since the 19th century as being anything from mostly natural to mostly human caused. Basically, they're saying here is that there is evidence on both sides that show mostly human caused, mostly natural caused. But the huge uncertainty of such key question is a major concern. A few days after our paper was posted online, the UN's IPCC published their 6th assessment report. The IPCC AR6 concluded that it was unequivocal that recent global warming was almost entirely human-caused. The reason why that they bring up the word unequivocal in quotes like this is because of, I heard a loud explosion, so I wanted to check this, but is because that the IPCC panel that wrote this report is so arrogant to just come off and say, this report has been concluded that it was unequivocal that recent global warming was almost entirely human-caused. Almost entirely human-caused. It's pretty arrogant, right? So the journalist, Alex Newman, was struck by the contrast between the two different reports. He interviewed Willie Soon and Connolly, representatives for the IPCC, and several other scientists in an article for the Epoch Times. It says here, people began sharing Newman's article on social media. One Facebook's independent fact-checkers, Climate Feedback, quickly stepped in. This fact-checker website, financially supported by Facebook, TikTok, Google News Initiative, and others, declared the article to be incorrect and misleading. Facebook began censoring any post sharing the link. Fact checkers claim to provide the solution, but weaponized fact check is nothing more than a narrative check. Science thrives when scientists are allowed to investigate areas of scientific disagreement. So when journalists, like me, I have no right to censor any climate information. I'm just a journalist, right? So when journalists and social media platforms use fact checkers to suppress genuine scientific disagreements, They are effectively shutting down scientific inquiry. Folks, this is not new, unfortunately. This happened to me over this paper here. World scientists warning of climate emergency. Somebody brought this up in a climate debate about how 11,000 scientists are on board with this so-called climate emergency. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Please cite the proof you are speaking of. And he shared this Oxford academic, bioscience, world scientist warning of a climate emergency. And then I screenshotted his link and showed the picture and circled the words viewpoint. That's right, folks. Viewpoint. Issue section. Labeling this entire paper a viewpoint. No more than an author's edit to the paper. It's opinion. It's speculation, folks. Oh, yeah. Now, they claim they use the best and most reliable information from the past 5 years. That's hilarious. Because last I checked, it only takes 5 years of looking at cycles and figuring out that's how warming starts. 5 years of data, that's it. Give me a break. Folks, these people here think you're stupid. Just because they put the word scientist in front of it, they don't think anyone's smart enough to read this. This is basic generic graphs that do not cite the actual source of these graphs. They're just reliable according to the people that put this together. You continue to read, and you've got a lot of current events speaking of things that are happening across the globe, and they're blaming it on greenhouse gases. That's not what a scientific paper is. And then you got energy. What's that? The world must quickly implement massive energy efficiency and conservative practices and must replace fossil fuels. Well, I don't see that in any kind of study I've ever read before when it comes to solar physics. Short-lived pollutants. Folks, again, read this. This is not a paper. In fact, I just had an episode a couple weeks ago where I'm showing you the difference between a science peer-reviewed paper and an article like this. But Facebook told me that I was spam and misleading because I circled that this was just a viewpoint and not a real scientific study. Now, I'll go back to this here just in a minute because this paper has something to do with the next article I'm going to talk about, and that is Biden announcing his new science advisory panel for pandemics and climate change and other issues. Oh, great. Oh, great. Another panel of his so-called scientists. This ought to be interesting, right? So there's going to be solar physicists and climate scientists in this panel, right? Right? President Biden is convening a panel of 30 scientific advisors. Scientific advisors, folks. To me, that means this is a desk job and a title for some buddies of his who he's owed a favor to and thinks these people are at least competent enough, smart enough to come up with some jargon that goes along with his narrative because, hey, now they're getting a what? $180,000, $200,000, $100,000 salary a year now thanks to Mr. Biden's fake new science panel. So check it out. The new council includes 2 Nobel laureates, 5 MacArthur Genius Grant recipients, oh, well, okay, as well as 2 former cabinet secretaries, a former astronaut who was the first woman to dive into the deepest part of the Earth's oceans. Well, hell, that's it right there. She's going to be able to show us the correlation of CO2 and temperature rise. That's it. Because she's in the ocean, right? Because CO2 is mainly stored in the ocean and released from the ocean. But I don't know. I'm trying to make the connections. Half of its members, including 2 of its 3 co-chairs, are women. Again, okay, great. Yeah, women are capable of these kinds of positions. You don't have to celebrate it in your article that just want to let everybody know that 2 of its 3 co-chairs, they're women, so we don't discriminate. Great. Thumbs up to you. Gold star awarded to you. Okay, so then this is, I highlighted this article, this paragraph here. This PCAST, that's what they're calling it for short. Isn't that cute? The PCAST. This PCAST will see new possibilities to create good jobs, empower American workers, and grow the economy for everyone. To change the course of human health and disease, to tackle climate crisis with American innovation to lead the world in technologies, the president says in a video. Folks, the first 3 points of this paragraph is create good jobs, power American workers, grow economy. What are those things in common? Obviously, right? I've talked about this before with the Green New Deal. I've explained this. This is not a climate change plan to help save the planet. This is a plan to change our economy. And they're already coming out with the headlines that global warming causes colder winters because they know this winter is going to be historic. Not because the old Farmer's Almanac said so, but we're looking at La Nina again. We're looking at a weak polar vortex this year. We're looking at more information from solar physicists that show us that we are continuing a cooling trend. We are experiencing a weakened magnetosphere. So we'll continue to see high amounts of cosmic radiation, cloud nucleation, and of course, increased precipitation, the flooding, the snowfalls. But of course, the mainstream media has hijacked this and called this climate change. In fact, folks, it's not. It's not climate change. This is called part of a natural cycle. But as you can see, with Biden's intent is not to save the planet, folks, because if climate change policies were really there to save the planet, if this was true, wouldn't you think it would be worded first here? The PCAST will seek new possibilities to save the planet? No. It talks about create new jobs, line my pockets. Power American workers so they can line my pockets. And grow the economy for everyone, but mainly line my pockets. That's what this paragraph screams to me when I hear about this panel from Joe Biden. And I want to thank Mari for bringing this one up to me today. And it's just infuriating because so many of us work really hard at trying to present facts to people who think that climate change is just it's just human caused and we got to stop driving cars and riding trains and riding planes and no more meat. We got to eat soy products now, so we can all be soy boys now. Instead of, let's get real, folks. Let's get real. I watched George Carlin's bit about climate change and environmentalists and how arrogant they are for thinking that they can save the planet as if the planet needs saved by man. And he said it best, the planet, when it wants to rid of something, it'll shake us off like fleas. And he's right. That's what viruses do. Viruses take care of things. When the planet's ready to cleanse itself and get rid of the nasty stuff, it doesn't die. The planet doesn't go away. We go away. And so, in a way, you see these Green New Deal policies, and I think people have been over-scared about climate change. So they think their days are numbered, that the planet's just going to have an end-of-the-world event due to climate change. And look, I hate to be a negative Nancy, but if an abrupt climate shift happens, say like something in the day after tomorrow, folks, there's nothing we can do about that. And it's just our time. It's just our planet's time to go. That's nature. That is nature. So several things to mention when we talk about climate change on this channel. The main thing we mention is how natural it is. But I'm bringing up articles like this because, again, if this whole climate change stuff and Green New Deal climate emergency stuff was actually put in place to help save the planet, then why are the first 3 things that's mentioned in this new scientific panel, which, by the way, new jobs, power Americans, grow the economy, nothing scientific about any of that. And then it mentions, we'll keep track of disease and stuff like that, and the climate and all that good stuff. Because, folks, this is not going to save the planet. And just like the Biden with the scientists or people that have nothing to do with, and here's more, the computer engineer, agriculture. I want an agriculture person in there on the climate change panel, I guess, but still. Ecology, nanotechnology, neuroscience. These are all the people that are on this scientific panel that's going to make decisions about climate change. Just like the group of people that signed this 11,000 signatured letter viewpoint that was censored on Facebook. They didn't like that I pointed out that these were not climate scientists. That's my point of all this, folks. All of these names that you're seeing right now, you look at it yourself. We're not talking about climate scientists, research professors. Research of what? Forest ecologist. What? Postdoctorate. Okay, medical doctor. Why is a doctor signing this letter saying we're facing climate emergency? A PhD in social work. Why is this person a PhD lecturer in social work has signed this letter saying we're in a climate crisis? Where is his training and background? It's simple, folks. It's simple. We're being lied to on a constant basis. And I know a lot of folks out there don't really care how it happens, as long as it doesn't affect their everyday life. Well, I'll tell you something right now. Better thank the stars that $3.5 trillion agenda that Biden is trying to pass is not going to go through. Joe Manchin and others are going to block this. And they're either going to, A, drop the price tag all the way down to $1.5 trillion or even lower, or it won't even go through at all, which is preferably what I hope for. I don't want Green New Deal policies put into law. It's bad enough with all these mandates that are starting to fly out. I feel like that the $3.5 trillion infrastructure deal, if it goes through, the quest to turn this country communist is almost complete, in my opinion. If you have Green New Deal policies in place, you have Facebook blocking scientific papers because it doesn't fit their narrative. So all these people that are trying to show the truth and they're working hard, folks. Willie Soon is not just some part-time guy that writes papers on the weekends. These guys are working extremely hard to provide us the truth and the facts about climate change, and trying to help some of these lawmakers not make bad decisions when it comes to lawmaking policies. Don't make the fatal mistake of making people pay for something that's not going to change anything. You're going to fail. Oh, sure, you'll change the economy in the beginning. There'll be high-paying jobs in the beginning. They're going to fall flat on their faces by the time it's 2029. Because we all know that solar and wind is not going to be any solution whatsoever unless you're talking about powering your greenhouse. So, all right, let's take a look at some weather. My rant is over. I just wanted to go over, excuse me. Let's actually refresh this one because this is the 00. I don't want that. I want the 18Z, please. So while we're waiting for this, there we go. There we go. 18Z. Let's see what's going on. So this low pressure system that's slowly making its way up the East Coast is ridiculous. I mean, it's been here for a couple days now. Honestly, it almost feels like it's in the same spot. I'll show a live radar for this. Heavy rain across from where Mari and I are in most of Vermont, New Hampshire. The northern parts will see the heavier near New York City. I don't know. There was a lot of reports of massive flooding going on in New York City, possible from the storm. I'm not so sure. We'll keep our eyes on it. Again, more weather for the Great Lakes. Scott Rose up there in Michigan. Watch out there. More storms heading your way. And then a cold front comes through. And boy, does it start to feel like fall in many places. High pressure dominating the East Coast for much of the beginning of next week. And then the Northwest, the only place getting wet. Some showers and storms across the South and Louisiana and Eastern Texas. Other than that, all is quiet. And then by the time we get to Wednesday, some more showers develop across the northern plain states. And again, something on the East Coast trying to form, but it does not affect the U.S. Storms get their acts together by Thursday, September 30th, moving across the Central Plain states and into the Great Lakes, the Northern Plain states, as high pressure on both sides of this front. So more cooler air to come after this next low pressure that's coming up on Sunday, October 3rd, which looks a lot like what we're dealing with right now across Michigan and through the Northeast. You guys see in the top right corner, looks like we got a little bit of cyclone action coming close to the East Coast. We'll have to keep our eyes on this. This thing could shift Next thing you know, Boston could be dealing with a tropical storm. So October 3rd, it's not unheard of to see storms. In fact, October should be busy for possible landfalls on hurricanes here early in the month before things start and fade away. And I'll tell you something, thank God that only Ida, Nicholas, and I know I'm forgetting another one that's made, and Henri, which didn't really amount to much either. Thank goodness, though, that we didn't have too many severe, hardcore hurricane landfalls like the AGW out there predict all the time. So again, a quiet pattern for the start of October, if you ask me. Snow is going to be possible for much of Canada by October 7th in the southeastern region. And then what could be our first real cold front to affect the northeast of the United States by October 8th and October 9th. But there are also some signs that show some more warmth building in, but a lot of high pressure. What does that mean temperature-wise? Let's take a quick look. Here we are, tomorrow's temperatures for the highs out there, looking awesome all over the place. Folks, I'll take 86 degrees if you live in Oklahoma, that's for sure. High temperatures across the Ohio Valley in 60s and 70s, 50s for the evening temperatures, and then in overnight lows in the 50s for almost everyone, 40s in the North Plain states and across the central. Some areas of 30s across Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana as well. More heat for the central part of the United States, 80s and 90s, but again, fall-like conditions for the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes region, northern, Wisconsin, and of course the Northeast. More fall-like weather to stick around. It's going to heat up here across the middle part. Matt Bros in Nebraska might be able to report on that for us. 95 degrees near McCook. That's September 27th. So summer not quite over, even though the calendar says it is. More warm weather to affect the central part of the United States by Monday of next week. Staying nice and cool in the northeast and across the northern part of the Great Lakes and Wisconsin and Minnesota staying nice. But if you live in the northwest, we got some 60s and 50s and 40s for highs, even some 30s in the upper elevations. By the beginning part of next weekend, by the time we get to Thursday, we start to see that contrast where that storms across the middle of the United States and then two high-pressure systems on each side of it. We see cool conditions in the northeast and the northwest on September 30th. And then overnight lows, check that out. Idaho, Montana could see some 20s, also possible in Wyoming, parts in the upper areas of Northern California and Central California as well. Colder air starting to filter in. Staying cool in the northeast and the northwest, warm across the central part of the United States. That looks like the pattern to be for a little bit. And then right here is where we kind of say, well, we can't really trust too much further out than 7 to 10 days. But let's see what the GFS has in mind for us here in the first week of October. And I'll tell you, it's kind of warm out for the most part. If you don't live in the northeast or the northwest, it's just right for the weather for those areas. But if you live in other parts of the United States, kind of a warm October so far. And there is an appearance of a cold front, the first real one, I believe, here on October 7th into the 9th. Look at this part of the country, starting to see overnight lows in the 30s, 40s here. So as we slowly creep into the middle of October, we are seeing a much, much milder start to this autumn season than we did last year. I can tell you that. The only thing that concerns me with that is that once it gets cold and stays cold. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on it right now. Let's enjoy this warm weather. For the most part, it's going to be beautiful out in the northeast, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and the northwest. Temperatures are going to be just about where they need to be after tomorrow, especially when this front moves through here in the upper part of New York. But for the most part, northwest, northeast, the Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley, looking like fall out there, and everyone out there is definitely enjoying that. And then just a couple more days of Indian summer for central part of the United States before finally October just saying, all right, we're done with the extreme heat. So, what do we look like ocean temperature-wise? Well, let's take a look at the La Nina region here. The 3-4 El Nino region is what we watch. And as long as temperatures are at 0.5 or below baseline, you are a La Nina. Right now, we are near 0.4 below baseline and dropping. So things continue to look more and more like we are heading into a La Nina for this upcoming winter. Here's another look at the solar flare from earlier today. There is the M3. We also had an M1.2 that followed that. So 2 solar flares today in the M-class region. They were Earth-facing, but as you can tell, if we're on a scale of things, Earth would be right here. So this is just going to go south of us, but it will still affect our magnetic field, and we could see some impacts from this by the 26th and 27th. Tomorrow, I expect G1 storms from solar wind, and then the day after, a possibility of more geomagnetic activity from the CMBs from these solar flares. I'd like to say hello to a few folks out there in the chat tonight. Knife Collector, Richard Davidson, hello there, sir. Corey Falls, good to see you in there, bud. Pizza Hut, Shirley Davis, hello, hello. Arnold Schmidt, good to have you on board tonight. I know I saw Matt Bros in here earlier. Good to have him, as always, our good friend, our farmer friend, that is. And, of course, my lovely wife for modding in the chat and always being a huge assistance when it comes to putting these shows together. Matthew McDonald, hello, and lots of new faces as well. Folks, if you like what you've seen tonight, please subscribe and hit that bell. Click on all notifications. YouTube is kind of like Facebook. They like to suppress the real scientific data because it doesn't fit their narrative. So you must click on that bell and select all on the notifications. But give us a like, give us a share, and always check back for more updates. One more look at the volcano here at La Palma Volcano on the Canary Islands. And again, lava fountain, this is not unusual. This has been about what it's been the whole time, really. Every night we've seen lava fountain about this tall. Tonight might be a little bit more active already than it usually is at this time, but we'll see. We got space weather coming in. This could impact the volcano. Of course, we will keep an eye on all of this here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Until then, we hope everyone has a great night, and we will talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.